So you want to learn how to make your guitar look fantastic. Welcome back, Troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. This is everything I use to get the results that you see in my videos. You're going to want two different kinds of paper towels. The cheap, nasty ones that you can get for like 99 cents a roll, and then you want Viva brand paper towels. These things are just like cloth. It's not a normal paper towel. For the guitar's finish, you want these. I'll leave an affiliate link to Reverb where you can buy the Virtuoso polish, but this you just have to get at Walmart. This takes care of your guitar. This is the stuff that takes care of your frets. Some fine fret polish. Most music stores carry this. And then you need to get a Dremel. This is going to be your most upfront cost, but trust me, it brings your results to the next level and it saves your hands a lot of wear and tear. I'd suggest something like this that has variable rates of speed. And then you want a soft cotton tip for your Dremel. If you're going to do the fret polish by hand, I'd actually suggest getting this. It's known as Blue Magic Metal Polish Cream. The only downside to this is it's very, very messy. Next, you can make a choice. If you're going to clean like a whole bunch of guitars, go ahead and get yourself a dedicated fret guard. But if you're only going to clean a few guitars, painter's tape is perfectly acceptable. And please, please get yourself some good gloves. Most guitars that you buy online, they look something like this when you get it. They have a haze built up over them, they've got scratches, we've got like dried on gunk and stuff. If you ever find a guitar that you think the neck is sticky, this process that I'm showing you today is going to 100% cure that and make it feel like glass again. First up, find yourself a nice clean working space, support your neck in some way. Then go ahead and remove your strings. Remove the bridge and tailpiece, as well as any other parts that you're going to clean around, such as the pickups, the pick guard, the truss rod cover. It's a lot easier to clean your headstock if you do remove your tuners, but I'll leave that up to you. I only do that on rare special occasions. And lastly, your back plates. Dust the guitar as best you can. The less dirt and grime that's on it, the better the polishes are going to work. However, I actually suggest cleaning your fretboard first because sometimes the polishing will get on the guitar body and then you'd have to repolish again. And I actually start by conditioning the fretboard. I use this Dunlop 65. The reason I do this process first is it makes the fretboard happy. It absorbs what it needs and it's less likely to take on any of the compound. And then I use the cheap paper towels on the fretboard. The reason why I do that is because they're slightly more abrasive, so it's going to help you clean the fretboard and slightly polish the frets even before we get to that process. So here's the part where you mask off your fretboard. You have so many different options to clean your frets. There's the steel wool variety, which is perfectly fine and acceptable. There's fret erasers, which have multiple uses. But then there's the Blue Magic Goo, as well as the fret polish. Then taking a step up using a Dremel. So I've cleaned these first 5 frets using all different methods. Our first one is steel wool, perfectly acceptable for most people. Our second fret utilizes a fret eraser. I would say that actually works slightly better than steel wool. But this is when I started to use the Blue Magic Goo. You see how it just has a little bit more of a lustrous shine to it? You're not going to get that using a non-metal polish when you clean your frets. But then our next one is the Fine fret polish. In my opinion, it does not do as good as the Blue until you introduce the Dremel. It's at this point where you reach that professional mirror-like shine. Now, can you use the Blue Magic Goo with the Dremel too? Yes. But in my experience, when using it on a Dremel, the Fine gives you just a slightly better look and is way less messy. So you decide what level you want to shine your frets to. So let me show you how I get those results. We set up the fret guard because it just makes life easier. But to begin, I suggest starting just 1 fret at a time. When you get comfortable with it, that's when I start doing about 6. But you just take your tube and squeeze a little bit out onto it. You don't need a lot. But take your variable speed Dremel and just have it completely off. Lock your wheel into place so it doesn't move, and massage it into the fret. This is both coating your wheel and getting the fret ready to be super polished. I like to use these small circular motions. And then finishing with some straight back and forth. But what I use for all these settings is you go up once, then you go down. You repeat that process 1 more time, and then you finish it off by wiping the fret in this direction. That'll become important once the wheel is on. So the reason why you work that into it, because if you just start doing this thing all willy-nilly, it starts flying all over the place. You don't have to worry about making a mess this way. So now turn it on to the very lowest setting that you have and do those motions I told you. You don't need to push down hard. You don't want to hear it bogging down like that. And don't be scared. You can't whack off the fret nibs or anything. Not in my experience anyways. I've been cleaning guitars like this for a year. So we made our first pass. Here's our second. Don't be scared to do a third if you think your frets really need it. But now go with the wheel to finish it off. Now it's at this point where I ramp it up 2 more steps. 1, 2, and repeat that process. Up once, down once, repeat. It's after this second stage that you should already see the fret pretty much as shiny as it'll be, but it's important to do the other ones anyways, because you can still see we're working with a lot of polish yet. You want to make sure that's all worked in nice and good. Now step it up 2 times. 1, 2. Now at these higher speeds, do be careful. If you don't have the fretboard protector on very good, it can scare the living daylights out of you if this happens to catch it and it like jumps. We'll use the rest of our material. That's why I like using this fret guard, is it's basically like an artist's palette. You can actually use more of the polish rather than letting it go to waste, getting stuck on blue painter's tape. And this is as fast as my Dremel goes. But you just wipe off the residue going side to side like so. And you're going to get a lot of black residue. You're going to have to wipe it a couple of times. Because if you don't, then your fingers turn black while you're playing the guitar. Then when you're all finished, you take your guard off. Sometimes I find it still slips through the cracks because the fret guard is kind of a one-size-fits-all type thing, so you usually get a little bit on your fretboard. But be sure to finish it off with a left and right stroke. And now all your friends are going to be jealous about how ridiculously shiny your frets are as compared to how they started life. Do be warned though, once you start this, you will never be able to say, yeah, I'm done cleaning this guitar until you have that nice, awesome polished effect. I don't think the average buyer would have thought the initial frets were in that bad a shape, but now you can see the difference that you can have. I might say, what good does this do? Remember, every time you're bending or doing vibrato, you are rubbing against the fret. When it's such a smooth mirror-like surface, that process is going to be easier. You don't realize how much the guitar is actually fighting you when you have these dulled over frets. But again, compare this to doing nothing to your other common cleaning ways of frets. This is the way you level up your game. Alright, now that we've seen it a couple of times, I'll do it with you in real time and share some efficiencies. But the end of the fretboard is a little bit different. You will need to remove your neck pickup to make sure this is flush. And this is the part I was telling you about earlier, where if you catch the end of it, it's going to flap up and sound like you cracked your guitar in half. I'll do it just to show you, but it's very terrifying. So when you're comfortable with the process, you can do multiple frets at a time. But it's the same process as before, you just do it for all the frets. Up and down, repeat, work it into the fret, move to the next one. The benefit of doing multiple frets at a time is, one fret didn't get enough, one fret got too much, it all kind of evens out in this process. And these polishing wheels, you might notice, hey, this one looks way different than what I just showed you earlier. It's because they wear. They last for about 10 to 20 guitars, depending on how dirty they are. And you do have to break these wheels in. I just suggest getting a scrap piece of metal or something and rubbing it against it just for a little bit. Because if you're not getting these exact results, it's because your wheel's not broken in yet. So there we go. Everything has been nice and worked in. We switch over to our 1 setting. And now the scary part. This only happens if you catch the edge. Even when you know to expect it, it's just like, oh no. Don't worry, it doesn't hurt the guitar. All that's going on is it goes whoop. But please, don't let that scare you. It only happens when you're doing it the first couple of times because you're inexperienced as how far on the fretboard you should go. But then, don't forget, take your Viva paper towel. Left and right motions. Get all the excess off. And then go ahead and give it another wipe down when everything is complete. Because remember, you want to get as much of this black gunk off your frets. If you don't do this process, you'll probably just be too frustrated to ever try it again. There we go, 1 pass. 2 passes, it's getting better. You're mainly just catching the stuff that gets it caught on the fret nibs. And then remember, finish it with left and right strokes. It just looks better. That's when you get to see the results of your hard work. Your frets just look absolutely perfect like mirrors. Now, sometimes you're going to get some stuff built up on here. Usually what I do at this point is I condition the fretboard a second time, but then I wipe it off right away just to help us get any black gunk that might have got on the board. But even before you do that, take another paper towel and run along the edges of the fretboard just in case anything got built up there. Even not trying to purposefully show off all the shininess of the frets, they still catch your attention. But that's only half of what I'm teaching you today. Now we need to make the body look better. This isn't bad, and a pump polish is good. In fact, let me show you what a pump polish can do. This is the Viva paper towel, by the way. Again, it's just like cloth. I'm not sponsored by Viva paper towels. They're just the best paper towels I've ever used. Does it look clean? Yes. Did we get rid of most of the splotches and whatnot on the headstock? Mm-hmm. But we can take this to a different level. I am not using aggressive cutting polishes that you need to have any worry about like burning through the lacquer or somehow damaging your guitar. Everything I am using today has no risk of that as long as you're not using a power tool or something. I still polish by hand. Alright, so here's our stuff. Virtuoso sells both a polish and a cleaner. In my opinion, the cleaner's trash, but the polish is what you want. This is what I find most effective as a cleaner. Now this does have some very light cutting elements to it, but I've been using this for at least 1.5 years now, and I've never had issues of it like affecting the blacklight test or anything, but it does get out some of the micro fine scratches. So this is what I use as my cleaner. And honestly, it's good enough just to be a one-time and done thing, but follow it up with this for like the next level if that's what you're trying to go to. So you take your Viva paper towel, rip yourself off a square. Then for conservation, you don't need this whole thing. Rip it in half again. And then I fold it once. Fold it twice. Then it's up to you if you want to fold it again, but this is how I usually do it. But take your compound. Put just a small dab, but then fold it over one more time. And kind of work it in there. This way you're not getting big blobs. Then work in a circular motion, like this. This is where removing the tuners becomes a little bit beneficial because you can get to the whole headstock. Just make sure you don't get too much product running down into the bare wood. Then go through the opposite circling direction. You'll eventually get to a spot where it becomes squeaky clean. Like so. That's how you know you've pretty well worked it all in. Now you get a fresh one. You wipe it off. And Now you can see we've got that really nice shine to the headstock, but that's just an aggressive cleaner. It's not going to get deep gouges out, but some of the smaller scratches you'll have some mild success with. But now let's follow it up with that Virtuoso polish. It's the exact same technique over here, although you don't have to use quite as much polish. So the Virtuoso polish was actually designed specifically for nitro finish guitars. So this is like really for working on a Gibson, but will it work just fine on a Squier or a Fender? Yeah, I'm sure it'll be okay. If you get leftover swirl marks or anything, it's because you're not using enough polish. Sometimes that'll happen on these Scratch X. And when you're finished, go ahead and wipe it off, same way. And that's going to be about as good as it gets. Sometimes you see things about guitars that you didn't notice before, like there's a little bit of discoloration in our headstock veneer. That looks like a reaction to bug spray or something to me. Here it is from far away. See how it has that wet look? Now compare it to the body real quick. I think you can see the differences. Now let's go ahead and complete that process on the rest of the guitar on my normal workbench. Now on the guitar, I like to work in 4 different sections. You start in your arm resting area and you go to about halfway up here. If you try to do too much, you run out of product. And I go to about the halfway point and you just keep doing your circular motions and you just really work it in. Then again, you'll start to hear the squeak, and you'll like feel it. It starts to fight you when you're running out of material. Just at that point when you can fold it over, use your clean side to go ahead and wipe it off. If you're happy with that result, you can go ahead and move on. This one still has a bit of hazing, but kind of like what we saw in the headstock, it looks like there might be some bug spray and or suntan lotion contamination to the finish. So you can't always get everything off. But what you will notice during this process is your flame top is going to start to come alive because you're removing all that dirt that's blocking the light, which makes it so the top doesn't move. So if you ever have kind of a dead top, it's probably just because it needs polished. This stuff is also good and safe to use to clean your plastics. But as far as your pickup covers and gold-plated stuff, I would not suggest the Scratch X for that. You'd be surprised how much junk you can get out of the bridge and tailpiece area, because most people don't bother to clean here, but this stuff, I mean, it cuts through all the gunk that's on it. I mean, look at what we're pulling off of this. The body might not make that much of a difference to you while you're playing, except for like in your typical armresting area, but it's the neck. When you do this process to the neck, it makes it feel glass smooth again. So that's our first pass. I think you can see the wood just looks a little bit different in the light, and you got that whole wet look. But that's only the cleaning portion. Now let's apply the Magic Virtuoso. There's that shine we've been looking for. And the polish process also helped get rid of some of that haze. But now I said you can clean your hardware. I get people asking me questions about this all the time. How do you clean gold hardware and make it look good without removing the plating? Do not use the blue goo. The blue goo will remove the plating. The Scratch X, I don't suggest using that because I have similar fears, but it's the Virtuoso polish. So here's a baseline test. I mean, this is pretty worn gold to begin with. So please don't mistake this for returning the gold to it, but you can see the difference in the way it shines. In fact, you might think, oh no, I did remove the gold plating because it's so shiny now. But trust me, it's still there. It just reflects more. And there's the results of that. Nice, reflective, and shiny again, including our tailpiece, front and back. And don't forget to do that to your pickguard bracket as well. But now we can flip it over to the backside, do the exact same process for that and the sides. back together, here's what we've got. It's super fresh looking, like it just came from the factory outside of all the wear and tear. So I hope this video helps you. It's a long process. I would say the first time you do it, it'll probably take you 3 hours, but you can knock that time about in half once you get familiar with everything and you just do it. Even if you don't want a super shiny guitar, at least do it to your frets. You owe it to yourself, because that is what you feel the most of while you play a guitar. So alright, troglodytes, if you follow my method, you want to share with me your results, feel free to send them to my Facebook page. And I hope you enjoy your new guitar knowledge of how to make them look shiny and new.